Always welcome.
Good morning, Gary.
Gary, but if you like
morning.
If you like pictures, today is your day.
Ah.
If you don't like pictures, you might log out in a few minutes. I'm just kidding. Okay. New chapter. Kache Kadashim 58a. Kache Kadashim Shachtim Bereshim Mizbeach. So we know that you have to slaughter things by the north, correspond to the north part of the altar. What if you actually slaughter it on the altar itself? So Kache Kadashim Shachtim Bereshim Mizbeach. Rabbi Yossi Omer Ki'ilu Nishchat B'tzafon. Slaughtering it on top of the altar is akin to slaughtering it in the northern part, meaning usually you slaughter it corresponding to the north of the altar. If you do it on the altar, so that has that same level and it's going to be okay. Sounds like maybe it's not ideal, but post facto, if you did it, it's fine. I don't know, maybe it is ideal. Tosa says it's not ideal. Maybe others argue, I don't know. So either way, the status on top of the altar is okay. That's always considered the north. That is Rabbi Yossi. Now, it's going to be confusing because his bar plukta, the one who argues with him, his name is Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda. They're going to argue, and we're going to have a lot of pictures to figure out what their argument is about. Don't worry. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, Omer. Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, says, no, divide up the altar. Half of the altar, and you divide it up and put a line in the middle. The southern part of the altar, that's like slaughtering in the south part, corresponding to the altar, and that's invalid. It's a slaughter in the north. However, if you slaughter towards the northern part of the altar, so that's as if you slaughtered by the north, and that's going to be fine. So the question is, what do they argue about? Rabbi Yochanan is going to suggest something, and then we're going to bring obviously a dissenting view. Sounds like I guess according to that, the whole Gemara is a civil war. So Amar of Asi, Amar of Yochanan, Omer Haya Rabbi Yossi. So Rabbi Yochanan, we actually, now it's much clearer. We had this last time, and Steve helped, about the altar being in the north. It actually was moved towards the north. So once we get here, we're going to see either the outer altar was all the way in the north coming from the Holy of Holies, meaning not coming into the temple, going the other way. When you're leaving the Holy of Holies, you're going from west to east, the north's on your left. When you're coming in, the north's on your right. So we're going to have different opinions. Was the altar all the way to the north? Was it all the way to the south? Was it in the middle? And it's going to make a difference depending if it's corresponding to the opening of the holy or to the antechamber, etc., etc. Let's see. So, according to Rav Asi and the name of Yochanan, Rabbi Yossi says the first opinion that holds that if you slaughter it anywhere on top of the altar, it's akin to slaughtering it in the north. That's because he holds that the altar was in the north. It was in the north. So yes, when you slaughter it on top of the altar, that's like slaughtering anywhere in the north because it itself is in the north. So Mizbeach b'tzafon kai. And when you walk into the temple, the outer altar is going to be on the right, all the way to the right. Now, what does it mean? Ki'ilu nishchat b'tzafon. The Mishnah says that when you slaughter it on top of the altar, it's as if you slaughtered it in the north. What do you mean as if? If the whole altar is in the north, so it's called slaughtering in the north. What's as if you slaughtered in the north? You have to do on the side of the altar, meaning on the ground, not on the altar itself. To teach you that when you slaughter it on top of the altar, that's as if you slaughtered it on the side of the altar, which is when it says north, it really means the side of the altar. The Mishnah comes to teach you that on top of the altar or on the side of the altar, since the altar is in the north, it's all considered the north. So, okay, that is the way Rabbi Yochanan understands Rabbi Yossi. So now, what's going to come out according to this? What does the dissenting view hold? Rabbi Yossi holds on top of the altars in the north because this holding's in the north. This is the north. So you're already outside the temple, sorry. So this is the north. So yes, when you slaughter it up here, it's in the north. But the other view holds, no, you have to divide up in half. The southern part is like you slaughtered in the south. The northern part is like you slaughtered in the north. What does it mean that the southern part is like you slaughtered in the south if the entire altar is in the north? Obviously, he holds, according to this, the altar somewhere else. And therefore, on top of the altar to the south, is as if you slaughtered in the south. So what does he hold? Elimiyata, according to this logic, that Rabbi Yossi, the first opinion, is in the north, then obviously Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, so he's going to have to hold that the altar is somewhere in the middle. It's in the middle. And therefore, if it's in the middle, and it corresponds to the opening of the entrance to the holy area, so you make a line, and therefore the imaginary line goes across the altar. Anything to the south, the southern part of the altar, is as if you slaughtered in the south, because the altar itself is smack in the middle. So that's what he would have to hold. So says the Gemara, okay, what's wrong with that? That sounds great. So the chitema achinami. So maybe you'll say, yeah, that's true. According to Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, it's going to be in the halfway, and therefore the northern part of the altar is like slaughtering in the north, and the southern part of the altar is like slaughtering in the south.
It's a more literal visualization.
What of the altar? Yeah. So says that can't be. Why? Meaning you yourself said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that Moder Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda Shim Shachtan Keneged Bekarka Psula. There's a statement of Rabbi Yochanan out there that says, in the name of Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, who we're trying to figure out what he holds, if you slaughter it corresponding to the altar on the ground, it's going to be invalid. So what does that statement mean? If it's the way you're saying it, so then what's wrong with that? If you slaughter it on the ground corresponding to the north part of the altar, since the altar right now is halfway, that should be good. And yet it says it's psula, it's not good. So what does that mean? Amarle, Hachi Kamar Rabbi Yochanan. Really a new understanding in the name of Rabbi Yochanan of what the argument in the Mishnah is all about. Really, Shnehem Mikra Echad Darsha. They're all interpreting one verse in two different ways. Sorry, it says in Vayikra. Hope everyone's excited for Vayikra at this point, no? We actually might have meanings to the words now, no? So still not. Okay, fine. The whole Zbachim again, right before Parshas Vayikra, to get those are for Gary to review. So the 11th verse of Vayikra says you're going to slaughter it on the side of the Mizbeah Safona in the north. In Shmos 20th chapter of Shmos says you make a Mizbeah. What is that? It's waiting for Shmos. So sorry, in Shmos it says you should make the tabernacle for me, and you should slaughter Olo Secha the Es Shilamech. So on the altar you should slaughter the Shlamim and the Ola and the Shlamim. Okay, so the verse says you should slaughter both the Ola and the Shlamim. Now, Rabbi Yossi Savar, the first opinion our Mishnah says, Kulo la'ola, the Kulo l'shlamim. The entire altar you can slaughter on the entire altar. In the tabernacle, you can slaughter a shlamim on the whole thing, an ola and the shlamim. The entire altar is fit for an ola and for a shlamim. Okay, so because he derives that verse in Shmos, so therefore you see, almost irrelevant to where the altar is, it sounds like, but the verse tells you on the altar itself, it can be used for a shlamim and used for a ola. Burnt offering and a peace offering. Okay, so what does Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda hold? Savar chetzi ola v'chetzi l'shlamim. He says, no, the verse says you can slaughter both, but it doesn't mean both on the entire altar. It means half of the altar could be for the ola and half of the altar could be for the shlamim. Now, why would he interpret the verse that way? The verse says you can slaughter an ola and a shlamim. Simply right, you can on the whole thing. It doesn't make any stipulation exactly on half of it. So why would you say that? The E suck at that, because if you want to tell me kulo la'ola kosher, that the entire section, the entire altar is fit for an ola. Well, hold on. We know that an ola is going to be slaughtered only in the north. The ola itself is more restrictive. And yet you allowed the entire altar to slaughter the ola. A shlamim, which is less restrictive, for sure should be able to be slaughtered on the entire altar. These sagadaita kulo la'ola kosher, says the Marwal Hashta, kulo la'ola kosher, kulo l'shlamim mibayi. If the novelty of the verse is teaching me that the entire altar is fit to slaughter the ola, so then for sure I can slaughter the shlamim on the entire thing. A shlamim is always, it's less strict than an ola. A shlamim is a kachim kalin at lower level of sanctity, but it doesn't have that same restriction as an ola, but it has to be in the north. So if you're on the ground and you have to slaughter the ola in the north, and the shlamim doesn't have that restriction, if you're on the altar itself, it's like a kal v'chomer. An ola, which is more strict on the ground and only slaughtered in the north, when you put it on top of the altar, you can slaughter it on the entire altar. So for sure, a shlamim, which on the ground is less strict, much more lenient, for sure on top of the altar, it'll be more lenient too. That's how Rabbi Yehuda is going to understand that verse. So therefore, it's unnecessary for me to teach me that the shlamim has to be slaughtered on the entire altar. So what must it be teaching me? That half of the altar is for the ola and the other half is for the shlamim. Yeah. Okay.
You can't do the shlamim on the entire altar. You could at the beginning. No,
that was the first opinion. That was Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yehuda says no. The shlamim. That's interesting. That's an interesting thing though. I mean, just because the ola can only be slaughtered on one half of the altar, why is the shlamim restricted to the other half? Maybe there's so much beyond the whole thing. That's a question. That's a question. Good question.
The ola and the shlam.
Mm-hmm.
And the ola is the north part.
Mm-hmm.
Then the shlamim must be the second part because you're saying you can't have whole altar anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the derivation. It's the two together make it.
But it's interesting. At the end of the day, Rabbi Yehuda is learning the verse that's teaching me half of the altar is fit for the ola and the other half for the shlamim. So when we're on the ground, we don't say that. On the ground, we say the shlamim could be slaughtered even in the north, right? Not only in the the altar itself.
But on the altar, you're saying you've got a whole altar, and you've got a whole mizbeach, and you've got two pieces.
Mm-hmm.
The two upright.
Interesting.
And the two together make it.
Right.
Otherwise, you go 1.5.
Mm-hmm. It's funny, on 55A on the bottom, we really had two ways to understand the shlamim on the ground. And we concluded, though, that the shlamim from a kal v'chomer can be slaughtered even in the north. But at one point it said that maybe the north is unique for the ola, and the shlamim can't be there. We had one possibility like that. We rejected it. But here on the altar itself, it does sound like that half of the altar is going to be right. Meaning that's what the Mishnah says. Really, the Mishnah says that according to Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, right? He doesn't differentiate between. No, Rabbi Yossi only talks about kachim hadash, but doesn't talk about shlamim. Okay, I don't know. Jules, good question.
Moving on.
Yeah, moving on. So, yeah. Okay, now v'idach, what does Rabbi Yossi, who learns that the entire verse is teaching you that the altar is fitting for both the ola and the shlamim? According to him, what does he do with this seemingly very strong rebuttal that we don't need the verse to teach you that if you can slaughter an ola, you can slaughter a shlamim there too? That's obvious. So what does he do with that? The idach ishik, he still needs it. Why? An ola, which it's a very small area where you could slaughter it. So it's definitely like there's not so much room there. Everyone's trying to slaughter the ola in that little area. Aval shlamim, delo dachak makum emalo. Shlamim, you have plenty of space on the ground to check the shlamim. You have the whole area of the courtyard to slaughter the shlamim. You would have thought that therefore you should not be able to slaughter it on top of the altar. Kamash Malan comes to teach you that the shlamim is can be slaughtered on top of the altar. So this understood the first understanding, which we rejected, was the debate in the Mishnah was the placement of the altar. The second understanding was nothing to do with the placement. It's how they interpret a verse regarding the ability to slaughter on the altar, almost irrelevant where the altar where it's placed in the courtyard. The point is that the top of the altar is different, has its own special rules. Yeah.
The third opinion basically says, that it was really a question of just sufficient geography to do the slaughter.
Where on the altar?
No, that's why you could use the altar because it wasn't in that.
For the ola.
For the ola, there wasn't in that floor space.
But that's true. It's only in the north. Everyone agrees to that. That's the Mishnah.
Yeah, but that's why you do it on the altar.
Right,
because you're running out of space. I've got to find somewhere else.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So now, Gufa, back to what we just said. Amar Vasim Rabbi Yochanan Moder Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Huda Shim Shakman connecting the Karka Solus. So we had this statement that Rav Asi said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Huda, the second opinion of the Mishnah, says if you slaughter it on the ground, Shem Shaktan Kinegidan, corresponding to the altar, the Karka, so Solus, it's going to be invalid. So what does it mean corresponding to the ground? Where corresponding? Where if you slaughter on the ground is it going to be invalid? What does that mean? Which area corresponding to the ground that you're slaughtering it is going to be invalid? Yeah. So what did this statement mean? Kenegdan b'karka. So I guess it means usually there's a part on the altar that you slaughter it corresponding to the ground, then it's invalid. No, the opposite. If you slaughter it on the ground corresponding to a part of the altar, that's going to be invalid. Okay, like we said. Which part is that? So Elema, maybe you'll tell me Ama Yisod, Ama Sovev. If you slaughter it on the corner or on the ledge of the altar, well, that's not considered the ground. That's part of the altar. So that can't be what the statement meant. That's one. But secondly, my kinegdon bekar. What does it mean? On the ground corresponding to it. What does that mean? If it's on the altar itself, it's not on the ground. So maybe you'll say the Abid Mechilos Bekarka B'Shachet. They made like holes in the ground. Sounds like under the altar, right next to the altar. How'd they get there? They tunneled through. No, I wasn't sure.
They rented a mole.
Yeah, they rented. So if it means that if you slaughter it literally corresponding to the altar, meaning you look up and the altar's above you and you're in a hole and you slaughter it there, I don't know how they got there exactly. I don't know. So it says more, hold on. Who says you can build an altar on top of an area that has a hole? Where'd that come from, such an assumption? The Hatanya, it says, it's still in Shmos, Mizbeach Adoma Taseli, build for me an altar of ground, make for me. So what does that mean of ground? Sheyeh mechuber me'adama, shelo yivnu al gabe mechilos v'lo al gabe kippin. That you got to build the altar on the ground, and you shouldn't build it on top of these holes. V'lo al gabe kippin, this little like a chamber, and ula. Arches, yeah, that chance at it. Arches works. Yeah, that works. Okay.
Yeah.
And arch, it's like we had keep on hedging more like a dome, like the word keep, almost some yarmulke is like a dome. I don't know. Yeah, it's like a dome. It's like like the bubble across the street. So you can't build them on top of the bubble. Yeah. So no, you can't build it on top of some kind of dome or holes in the ground. Fine. So that can't be what it means. Okay. Lo tzricha de batre b'tzuri. Interestingly enough, sometimes literally means that they would lessen it, but it doesn't mean they would chop away from the altar. It means let's say you have to rebuild the altar a smaller size. We're going to see later, as long as it's square, you're good to go. It doesn't sound under such a minimal size. As long as it fulfills its requirements. But let's say at some point, I don't know, we'll see in a second, it's going to be 32 amos. Let's say you want to rebuild it and make it 20 amos because you need the space. So in those 12 amos that it used to be, you cannot slaughter over there. And that's what it is teaching you. Yeah.
Rebuilding it on a small.
Right.
Regardless of size, provided it's
right. Yeah, that was good. Fine. So that's that. Now, Rabbi Zera, Efshir Isa lahad Rabbi Yochanan, velo tanina la b'masnisin. Is it possible? So now we're going back to the first statement of Rav Asi in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. That really says that the argument between the two opinions in the Mishnah was about the placement of the altar. Was it in the north or was it somewhere in the middle? So this that Rabbi Yochanan said, that Rabbi Yossi, the first opinion in our Mishnah, who says that any place on the altar is fine because he holds that the altar is in the north, could it be Rabbi Yochanan said it and it wasn't part of the Mishnah? It's got to be somewhere. This statement's got to be somewhere. That the altar was all the way in the north. So what's going to happen? We're going to bring a long Mishnah with a lot of pictures, prove to you that Rabbi Yossi holds that the altar is going to be in the north, and then we're obviously going to bring two other views of the Mishnah. It doesn't have to be Rabbi Yossi; it can be other opinions as well, and that's going to bring us more pictures. Okay, so now, so Amar of Zera, yeah, actually, okay, so no, we found. Nafak Dok Vasher. He went out, he examined, and he brought back a Mishnah. Yeah. So what the Mishnah say? A Mishnah in Talmud. Sure, about Talmud. Yeah, it has pictures. Okay. You'll help me. So Biru Misham. So this is talking about the three pyres on top of the altar. This is talking about the second one. So you had one for the sacrifices, for the frankincense, and then for the keep the fire on the altar at all times. I believe. Yeah. So they had the following. Biru misham atze te'ena. They would take actually wood from fig trees, nice fig trees, to put onto the pyre. The seder maracha shniya shel ketoris. They would offer ketoris, the special ketoris. Yeah. So they would offer that from figs. Rashi brings some Sanhedrin. Why figs? Because there's different opinions of what the original tree was the Adam Chava ate from. Was it a fig? Was it a grape? So it sounds like this opinion holds. They would use figs because, interestingly enough, food for thought, no pun intended, how somehow the fig, the wood of the pyre was from fig, and that somehow was misakin, that helped fix the sin of Adam and Chava. It says. They sin with a fig tree, use fig tree wood for the pyre is somehow a rectification. That's what they wanted. Rectification of the sin of Adam and Chava. Interesting.
Covering. Bigly.
Yeah, good. Yeah. So, okay. So, Shel Ketoris. Keneged, where would they do this? They would put it, Keneged, corresponding to Keren Ma'aravis Dromis, the southwest corner. However, in this part that we need, it was Mashoich Min HaKeren, Klape Tzafon. It was away from the north, Arba Amos, meaning go to the southwest corner and then go north 4 Amos. So that's where it was. Klape Tzafon Arba Amos. Yeah, Be'umeid Chamesh Sayin, Gechalin, Okay, now that's the part that we needed. That you go to the southwest corner, 4 amos away, and that's where you would put the wood of the second pyre, the fig wood. Okay, I'm going to figure out why that's true. But now, just finishing off the Mishnah, Ba'omed Chamesh Sayin, it weighed 5 sayin. B'chalom b'Shabbos, Ba'omed Shmona Sayin on Shabbos, they would use 8 sayin worth of weight. And the Gechalim Shesham Hayu Nostin Shnei Bezich Levona Shalechem upon him. Sorry, Chamesh Sayin Gechalim. It was 5 sayin of the coals. U'b'Shabbos Ba'omed Shmona Sayin Gechalim. And on Shabbos it was 8 sayin of the coals. Shesham Hayu Nostin Shnei Bezich Levona Shalechem upon him. Every Shabbos we had the special lechem upon him, and with the lechem upon him, there was, I think, 2 spoonfuls of frankincense. Right? 2 spoons. Yeah. So okay, that was there too. Fine. Umayi simana. What was the sign? What was the sign? I mean, how do you, I guess, let's remember this. What was the sign they used to know to put it 4 amos away? That was Rabbi Yossi. That was thanks to Rabbi Yossi. What did Rabbi Yossi say? The Tanya Rabbi Yossi Omer Zeh Siman. Here's the sign. Kol hanitel. Okay, so here's a nice riddle. Kol hanitel b'fnim linatein b'chutz eino nitain ela b'sama. Take the next part out. So Rabbi Yossi says, this is the sign. How you remember it? Anything which is taken from inside to outside, kol hanitel b'fnim linatein b'chutz eino nitain ela b'sama. So when you're taking, we'll see in a second, taking certain things from the inner area, from the holy area, to the outer area, like to the altar, you have to put it on the closest part, right? So if you're exiting right here, the holy area, so let's say the corner is the closest part, you put it here. Let's say it's over here, so you put it here. Let's say it's in the middle, you put it in the middle. Whatever the closest part is, that's where you put it. That's if you're going inside to outside. Eino nitin ela b'samach she'ein lifnim. Okay, I'm not sure how to read the she'ein lifnim. She'ein lifnim hemenu. Translate that word exactly. I don't think Rashi has that much. Yeah. The kol hanitel b'chutz, and the other way, anything taken from the outer altar to be placed in the inner altar, eino nitel ela b'samach she'ein lifnim. Then that has to go on the inner part, which is closest to it. So now, what are we talking about? So, kol hanitel b'fnim linatein b'chutz, things that are taken from the inside to the outside. What is that? Ma'inihu. So, what did Rabbi Yossi teach us? What is that? Ilem ashirayim. We know that the remnant blood, even on the inner offerings that you slaughter and that you sprinkle on the inner altar, but the remnants go on the outer altar. Maybe that's what Rabbi Yossi is referring to. So it says Gemara, that's explicit in the Torah. We don't need Rabbi Yossi for that. That's a pasuk. Ksibahu el yisod mizbeach ola. You got to put it on the mizbeach ola, on the mizbeach where the ola slaughtered, meaning the outer altar. Asher pesach ohel moed, which is by the entrance of the ohel moed. So that can't be Rabbi Yossi teaching us. That's an explicit verse. Vesu, and furthermore, kol nitel b'chut menatim b'fnim ma'inihu. What is the example of things that are taken from the outside inside? So, some of the coals of the Yom Kippur service that you take from the outside to the inside. So, you take the coals from the outside, put on the inside. So, if that's what Rabbi Yossi is going to teach you, that's behed yiksibuhu. That's explicit. It says it says there in the verse that you're going to take the stuff from the outside to the inside. So what did Rabbi Yossi teach us? Ella the following. Rather, it means he meant the following. Kol hanitel b'fnim linatein b'chutz. What is the example of something taken from the inside to the outside? And make sure you put it right there, right at the closest part when you walk out. That is the Shnei Baziche Levona shalechem apanim, the 2 spoonfuls of the frankincense of the lechem apanim, of the what's called the showbread, lechem apanim, those the gemiri mishirayim. There's a tradition, halacha Moshe Sinai. We have a tradition from Sinai that that those things are brought from the inside to the outside, just like the shirayim. So you take them from the shulchan. They would have the bread on the shulchan, which is in the holy area, and next to the all the pieces of bread that they had, the different loaves, they had these 2 spoons of levona of frankincense. Those, we have a tradition, you would take them out from the inside to the outside, just like the shirayim. And comes Rabbi Yossi and tells you, when you do that, make sure you put it on the part that's directly corresponding to the entrance. So when you're walking out of the holy area, we're going to see now the holy area is 10 tvachim. It's 10 tvachim. When you walk out of the middle of it, right? So you have 5 to your left, that's the north. 5 to the south, that's going to be the south. So you have to put it right at a part that corresponds right to negative, right corresponding to it. So we're going to figure out, where is that? If the altar is here, then that's the corner right here. If the altar is here, then it's going to be right here. If it's in the middle, it'll be in the middle. So now, we're trying to prove that the altar was in the north. That's what we want. Remember, from the fact that they would take the second pyre of wood and they would move it from the southwest corner, that would be, southwest would be, I guess, where are you standing? Let's see, sorry, southwest, you would move it from here 4 amos to the north, right? So now, if the altar's in the north, and you're moving this to the north, so when you walk out of here, and there's a line in the middle, 5 tachim to the north is the first thing you hit, right? The middle of the entrance is going to correspond to the north. If the altar's in the south, how is this area, the southwest corner, right? If the altar's in the south, this is not corresponding to right when you walk out. So that's why it's going to prove to us that really it's over here. The altar is going to be in the northern part. Therefore, the southwest corner is to the left, and it's going to be corresponding to when you exit from the holy area. You exit, the first thing you hit is going to be the northern part of the altar. That's going to be that's what it's about to say. So, yeah. So that's that. Now, hanitel b'chutz and leinatin b'fnim, you bring from the outside to the inside is gecholim, is going to be the coals. Gechol yoma v'yoma, the coals of every day. The gamron mi gecholim shel yom kippurim. You take the coals from the outer altar and you bring it inside. And that's learned out of the coals on Yom Kippur, and you bring the coals from the outer altar inside. Yeah. 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 Okay. Fine. So that's that. Now, Umayika Savar. This is all the opinion of Rabbi Yossi. This is Rabbi Yossi's statement to understand the Mishnah and Talmud. He gave a sign for you to know where you put a sign of what goes where. Now, right? So step 1, right? What was step 1? Rabbi Yochanan said a statement in the name of Rabbi Yossi that the altar is in the north. The question was, where is that in the Mishnah? Find it to me in the Mishnah. Okay, I'll find it to you. Step 2 was we found a Mishnah in Talmud, which told us that you on the southwest corner you put the second pyre, but only 4 amos, 4 tvachim away. 4 amos away. 4 amos away from the southwest corner. Step 3 was Rabbi Yossi commented on that Mishnah, a sign of what goes in to out and out to in. So we see that Rabbi Yossi is really agrees with that Mishnah. So now, where in that Mishnah do we have a hint, any kind of remez, a hint that the altar, the outer altar, was placed on the northern part of the temple? So now, we're going to go through all the options, reject all of them until we come to our conclusion. That process of elimination. So, Umay Kasav. Ikasaver, I guess this stuff is our better. This is the 10 amos. So you're walking out in the middle, right in the middle of 10 amos, which means when you walk out, you have 5 amos to the left and 5 amos to the right. When you're walking out, To the left is the north, and to the right is the south, right? When you're walking in, to the right is north, and to the left is the south. So now, if the altar is over here on the south next to me, so then you find your place. No, well, my kasavar. Ikasavar klulim is be'ech b'darim is all the way in the south. So then, esrim v'sheva ba'i lemesei, to bring the whole altar is 32 tvachim, right? 32 amos. Sorry, the whole altar is 32 amos. So you're in the southwest corner over here. Now you need to bring. You need to bring. One second. You're bringing the. What are you bringing? 1 second. You're bringing the. Yeah, you're bringing these. The 4 amos of the pyre has to be corresponding to the entrance. So, how come the Mishnah said you have to move it 4 amos and that's it? It has to be corresponding to the entrance of the holy area of the Heichal. So to get from the southwest corner is not 4 amos. You're going to travel 27 amos. When you travel 27 amos, then you'll get to the opening of the Heichal. Now, but the Mishnah said only 4 amos, not 27. So that can't be. So, yeah. So we have the antechamber. So this is the Heichal. But then you have, this is right outside of it is the antechamber. And it's wider than it. And maybe you'll say that this is all one sanctity. So what did you gain? That you gain 5 more amos because this extends 5 more amos than the Heichal does. Okay, this is it's not corresponding. But this is 10, this is 20 amos. So you'll say this is all one sanctity, and therefore it extends further. This is so you have 5 amos more of leeway. That's called the entrance. Okay, but either way, you still have to move it now from here to the entrance of the antechamber to the ulam. That's going to be 22 amos. Great. So you gain 5 amos, but you're still 22. Well, you may say. So, but it says here, all you have to do is move from the southwest corner 4 amos, and you're already corresponding to the entrance of the holy area. If the altar's in the south, it doesn't make any sense. To get to the entrance over here, the middle, you're going to travel. Remember, it's 32 amos, the altar. So you're going to travel over, if it's all the way to the south, and you're trying to get to the middle, it's going to be 22 amos. So that can't be either. Okay, second option, we're going to put it right in the middle. The altar's right in the middle. It's half in the north and half in the south. Okay, so let's figure this out. So now, so now, it's in the middle. It's in the middle, but the southwest corner is still all the way to the left. It's not corresponding to the entrance. So what do you have to do? So you can look at the pictures, but you're going to have to move it from here now 11 amos to get corresponding to the entrance of the Heichal. Now you'll tell me, you want to tell me that these two have the same sanctity, and since the antechamber is 5 amos bigger than the Heichal, you got 5 amos more of an entrance. So all you have to do is bring it out from the southwest corner 6 amos, and you're already corresponding to the entrance of the antechamber. Okay, but it's still not what the Mishnah said. The Mishnah says move it to the north 4 amos, and you're good to go. According to this, it's going to be 6 amos. El Alav must be Mishum Kasavar Klum is Beach, but Safon Kai. The entire altar is over here in the north. Now, if the altar is here in the north, so now the honey Arba Amos. So now here it's in the north. So now, what exactly are these Arba Amos? Once it's in the north, you should be good to go. So what are these 4 amos? You have to move the wood of the second pyre of the fig wood. You have to move it 4 amos. It's going to be as follows. Arba amos. Amma yisod. You have 1 amma. Right. So you have 1 amma of the base. Right. So move it 1 amma further north. Then you have amma sovev, an amma of the ledge. So move it 1 amma away from that. The amma makom karanos, and you have another amma that takes up the actual corner, the horns on top. So move it 1 amma away from that. The amma makom raglei kohanim, and you need the kohanim to actually stand there. That's another amma. So you move it slowly, 4 amos, but it's still corresponding to the entrance of the altar. Now, if you go past 4 amos now, then you're no longer by the entrance, right? You're walking out of the middle. You're walking out of the middle over here. So the middle corresponds to these 5 amos of the altar. So you're going to put the second pyre 4 amos over, one for the base, and one for the ledge, and one for the horns, and one for the feet of the kohanim. But if you move it 1 amma more, so now you're already not directly in the middle of the entrance of the holy area. You've now went too far. You're too far to the right. It's now no longer corresponding to that entrance. It's too much to the right. Yeah. So then if you go too much another tefach, so then you're no longer corresponding to the entrance of the holy area, and therefore that's not going to be good. So at the end of the day, what happened? The Mishnah said that Rabbi Yossi said, if you slaughter on top of the altar, it's as if you slaughtered in the north. Rabbi Yochanan said that's because the altar is fully in the north. To that we said, is there a Mishnah? We find a Mishnah that says that. We found a Mishnah that said that the second pyre that they would put on the altar is from the southwest corner, has to be moved 4 amos to the north to be corresponding directly to the opening of the heichal. When you walk out of the holy area, when you walk out, directly corresponding to that is going to be 4 amos north. So the southwest corner, 4 amos north. That only makes sense right now. We assume if the altar itself is all the way to the north, the altar itself is 32 amos. When you go from north to south, when you hit the southwest part, that part is directly corresponding to the entrance as you walk out of the heichal. Right there, the first thing you get is the north part, and therefore that's where you put the second pyre, 4 amos away from the southwest part towards the north. Oof. Okay, more pictures tomorrow. 2 more understandings of this Mishnah.
Exactly where are we?
What? We are in the southwest corner, 4 amos away.
On the page, where are we?
On the page, sorry. We're 4 lines down. Right in the Omer Rav Ada Bar Ahava.
Perfect.
Gary, have a great day.